So after a long wait, Disney's new Snow White finally came out last week, and to put it mildly, my friends, this has been a colossal mess. I mean, it's been a colossal mess since the very beginning, basically, but this release, this premiere, has been absolutely horrifying. Like, I literally found myself feeling bad for them.
So, the Rachel Zegler drama has reached crazy levels, and Disney is considering doing Snow White all over again. But this time, Zegler might be kept as far away from the film as possible. Instead, Disney's trying to do damage control with a brand new approach, casting Brett Cooper in the lead role. But can this damage really be reversed? The casting of Rachel Zegler was a mistake from day one. Let's rewind to when Disney announced that Rachel Zegler, a rising star with Colombian and Polish roots, would be stepping into the role of Snow White, and the internet did not hold back. Suddenly, everyone became a fairy tale historian, quoting that one line from the Brothers Grimm like they wrote it themselves, "Skin as white as snow."
In the original fairy tale, she is named Snow White because she has white skin. And that is what the name refers to. She has skin as white as snow. That's why she's named Snow White.
Critics were outraged because how dare Snow White not have fair skin? But Rachel didn't flinch. In January 2022, she clapped back with style. She said Snow White's known and loved in Latin communities too, and seeing a Latina play her is something that never happens. So she was proud. Then came the plot twist. Turns out Rachel wasn't even the only Latina up for the gig. Renata Vaca, another fierce Latina, made it to the final round. So the role of Snow White came down to two powerhouse women breaking all the old fairy tale molds. Renata later spilled that the casting call was open to all ethnicities, and the first round involved just singing a Disney princess song. But wait, we haven't even gotten to the part that blew the whole forest up. See, Rachel wasn't exactly feeling the 1937 original, and she said it out loud, on record, at the 2022 D23 Expo. She called the OG version dated. She talked about how the prince straight up stalks Snow White.
There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
Then she tossed a curveball, saying the new film doesn't center around romance at all. And if you thought the prince would get a glowing hero arc, think again.
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
This led to a lot of outrage. Some fans accused her of turning Snow White into a corporate girl boss. Others claimed she was trashing femininity, saying not every woman dreams of leading a boardroom. Some even asked, has she even watched the original? The answer was unclear, but the backlash was loud. Enter Ashton Stein, a brand strategist who went public saying Rachel clearly missed her media training classes. But it didn't stop there. David Hand, yes, the son of the original co-director, chimed in too, calling the remake insulting. He said his father and Walt Disney would be turning in their graves. Now that's a hot take with some ancestral drama. Just when you thought the fire was dying down, something strange happened. Conservative media company, The Daily Wire, slid into the scene. They announced their own live-action version, Snow White and the Evil Queen, starring Brett Cooper. They wanted to fix what Disney apparently broke. But Brett Cooper left The Daily Wire in December 2024. And ever since, there have been no updates, no trailers, and nothing else. So much for that showdown. Now, back to Rachel. In October 2024, she sat down with Variety and tried to clear the air. She said there was, in fact, a love story in the film, and that people took her words the wrong way. According to her, some of it was jokes that didn't land. But the internet had screenshots, receipts, and commentary videos to prove that Rachel meant what she said. So, was this damage control? Maybe. But it was giving too little, too late energy for some fans. Now let's talk politics. After the teaser trailer dropped in August 2024, the film sparked international controversy. BDS and PACT BI called for a boycott over Gal Gadot's military background and her support for Israel.
But my name is Gal, and I'm Jewish. And we have had enough of Jew hatred.
Meanwhile, Rachel made it clear she stood with Palestine. So yeah, the cast was suddenly on opposite sides of a global political conflict. Things got so intense that Gal Gadot started receiving hateful messages. Disney had to step in with extra security because the stakes were no longer just box office numbers. Now it was personal safety. But weirdly enough, despite everything, Gal and Rachel were reportedly chill on set. There was no tension and no icy silences. Just two co-stars doing their job while the world debated every single thing they said, wore, and liked on social media. How they managed that is still a mystery. Then came another boycott, this time from Republican voters after the 2024 presidential election. Why? Because Rachel tweeted, "F*** Donald Trump," and followed it up with a message that basically wished his supporters eternal unrest. The internet exploded, and soon after, Rachel issued a public apology. She said she didn't mean harm, and that she just wanted peace.
And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
But the damage was done, and the headlines were already out there. Still, Zegler's stance wasn't the only thing bringing Snow White down. It was the plot of the film itself. All right, picture this. A king and queen have a baby girl during a snowstorm. The whole kingdom's covered in white, so they name her Snow White. Simple as that. Everything seems perfect at first, but not for long. The queen gets sick and passes away, and before anyone even has time to process it, the king rushes into a new marriage. He barely settles in before heading off to fight some mysterious threat on the borders, and then he just never comes back. That's when things take a turn. The new queen is not just any stepmother, she's an enchantress, and she doesn't waste time. As soon as the king's gone, she takes over the throne like she was waiting for this moment. And she's not ruling with kindness either.
My parents and I we'd pick apples. We'd take them and make pies, then go out into the village.
Pies are luxuries. They don't need luxuries.
She's obsessed with her looks. While the kingdom falls apart, she's in the castle talking to a magic mirror every day, asking who's the fairest one of all. And for a while, the mirror keeps saying it's her. That makes her happy enough to keep going. Meanwhile, poor Snow White is stuck in the palace, not as a princess, but as a maid. She cleans floors, scrubs pots, and lives a quiet life while the queen hogs the spotlight. But then one day, something unexpected happens. Snow White catches this guy named Jonathan sneaking around the pantry. Turns out he's the leader of a group of thieves. He gets caught and sentenced to be tied up at the palace gates. Snow White doesn't even hesitate. She sneaks over, frees him, and gives him food. It's a small moment, but it changes everything. That same day, the mirror gives the queen an answer she wasn't ready for. It says Snow White is now the fairest. The queen snaps and sends her huntsman into the forest with a brutal order. Take Snow White out and bring back her heart in a jeweled box. But here's the twist. The huntsman can't do it. He tells Snow White the truth and begs her to run. She takes off into the forest, terrified and alone, but she's not lost for long. The forest animals show up, and they guide her to this tiny little cottage deep in the woods. And guess who lives there? 7 dwarfs, each with their own quirky personality: Doc, grumpy, bashful, sleepy, sneezy, happy, and dopey. They work in a diamond mine and are completely caught off guard by this stranger in their home. But when they hear what she's been through, they let her stay, for one night at least. Back at the castle, the queen finds out Snow White is still alive.
Where is Snow White?
Snow who?
You're protecting her.
Answer, Her Majesty.
She locks up the huntsman and sends her guards into the forest to find the runaway princess. Meanwhile, Snow White runs into Jonathan again. Together, they fight off the guards, side by side with his group of thieves. Something starts to grow between them. It's quiet, unspoken, but it's there. Snow tells him she thinks her father might still be alive, so Jonathan takes off to find him. But just like the king, Jonathan disappears. He's captured by the queen's guards and locked away. At the same time, the queen decides it's time to finish things herself. She retreats to her secret chambers, mixes up a poison apple, and transforms into an old peddler woman. She finds the dwarf's cottage and tricks Snow White into taking the apple, pretending to be one of Jonathan's allies. Snow hesitates, but eventually takes a bite. Just before everything fades, the queen whispers the truth. She's the one who ended Snow White's father. Then she disappears back to the castle. Snow White falls into the sleeping death, and the dwarfs return to find her lifeless, but not for long. Jonathan escapes with the help of the huntsman, races back to the cottage, and finds her there. In his grief, he kisses her, and somehow it works. She wakes up, but she's not the same girl anymore. She's ready to fight. She gathers the dwarfs and the thieves and heads back to the castle to face the queen. When they finally meet, the queen hands her a diamond dagger and dares her to use it. But Snow White refuses. She reminds everyone of how things used to be, how peaceful and kind the kingdom was under her parents. And something shifts. The guards, the townspeople, they all start to listen. They start to remember. The queen tries one last time to strike, but she's stopped. The mirror, tired of being her sidekick, tells her the truth. Snow White will always be the fairest, not because of her looks, but because of her kindness. Furious, the queen smashes the mirror, but that's her biggest mistake. The mirror is the source of her magic, and when it breaks, she turns into glass and vanishes into a vortex. Just like that, she's gone, and the mirror slowly repairs itself. The kingdom rejoices. Snow White is crowned queen, marries Jonathan, and finally brings peace back to the land. But there was one part of this plot that attracted an intense amount of outrage, and it was the reimagination of the Seven Dwarfs. It all started back in January 2022 when Peter Dinklage spoke up about the live-action Snow White remake, and he straight up called the story backward.
You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that fucking backward story of seven dwarves living in a cave. What the are you doing?
Peter might have a point. He has had a long career, he's played a lot of roles involving dwarfism, and he felt like Disney was recycling old tropes. But the drama didn't end there. Disney, trying to calm the waters, released a very polished statement. They said they were actually already reworking the 7 characters and had been consulting with members of the dwarfism community. But not everyone was buying it, because suddenly, more actors with dwarfism started speaking out, and they weren't exactly cheering for Dinklage. Actors like Dylan Hornswoggle-Postel, Jeff Brooks, and Katrina Kemp all came forward saying, "Hold on, Peter doesn't speak for all of us." They were frustrated because his comments, while well-intentioned, may have just cost a bunch of actors their chance at landing major Disney roles. And if you think that was the peak of the controversy, we're just getting warmed up. Fast forward to July 2023, and a bunch of production photos leaked online from Berkshire. And what did we see? Not the 7 dwarfs, but a very different lineup. 1 actor with dwarfism, and 6 others who weren't. And here's the thing, they were from all different ethnicities, and one of them was a woman. People on social media accused Disney of going too far in the name of being politically correct. Others were upset because this bold new approach meant that several dwarf actors may have missed out on roles that, historically, would have been theirs. Now, all of these controversies could only lead to one thing: a terrible reception at the box office. Rachel was proud of what she had achieved with this film.
It's very validating. A lot of hard work has gone into this film, but so much love, truly, speaking for myself and also for the filmmakers behind it.
But the world may disagree because the numbers tell a different story. As of April 3rd, 2025, Snow White had made $71.4 million in the United States and Canada and $75.8 million in other places. That's a total of $147.2 million worldwide. Not bad, right? Well, not enough, because according to The Hollywood Reporter, Disney needed a solid $500 million just to feel financially safe. But how were the reviews? On Rotten Tomatoes, only 40% of 245 reviews were positive, with an average score of 5.2 out of 10. The BBC called it cluttered and confused, and Film said it felt hollow. The Hollywood Reporter admitted the message was a little too on the nose, even if Zegler sold it with heart. Slant called it paint by numbers, and the Los Angeles Times described it as a magic mirror, reflecting modern-day contradictions. Perhaps the most awkward part was that by April 2025, over 91% of the reviews on IMDb were 1 star. That's when IMDb had to flag the film for possible review bombing. So yeah, people had feelings, and nothing can help the devastating loss Disney has faced with this film. Better luck next time. Let us know what you think in the comments, and be sure to watch this next video if you can't get enough of this Snow White drama.